A month ago, TF2 finally got an update that was apparently pretty good, going by the positive reviews I saw on YouTube. If you've been with me for a while now, you will know that I can care less about these type of maps, especially the one with the seal that everyone is going crazy for. But one thing stood out to me, the new versus Saxton Hail mode. I played the community version known as Free Fortress, so this was something I was familiar with. So let's give it a try. Oh, alright then,
2,000 years later.
Alright, it's back, and I finally got to try it, and it's not what I expected. At all. I'm gonna give you my 2 cents from experiencing this game mode. Versus Saxton, a very popular mode that everyone just can't wait to log in and play. I learned of it being finished when I played TF2 with my best friend Jeff, who just got a brand new PC, so it was his very first time. When I went to the list to start a game, I noticed versus Saxton and got hyped. I finally got to try it, and believe me when I say I joined a very bad server. Some weird pregnant Sonic bot or whatever was spamming the mic. The game mode was alright so far, but it was just a few games. We didn't stick around because dying every 3 minutes gets old, so we went to play a real game. At one point, I decided to play it again to take a break from installing mods for Xenoverse 2 to play with my friend. I figured I'll do some TF2, and decided to give versus Saxton another try. I had footage on my second time playing Saxton, but sadly that footage didn't come out properly due to my recording software being buggy and weird. I'm gonna put my opinions in the categories from Mercs to Saxton. First up is the Mercs. During my first 2 matches, it reminded me of Freak Fortress. You're so fragile, and once you die, you gotta wait for what feels like an eternity for the game to end just to die again. So you just sit and watch everyone else play the game. I usually just take out Dragon Ball Legends or something. It wasn't bad in Freak Fortress. Sure, it sucked, but dying was to be expected. It's basically the meta because the Freak was impossible to beat. But it's just how it was, and you accept it despite how repetitive it was, but in versus Saxton, it's completely different. It's even worse when you're the first one to die. It's to be expected when you play just 2 matches. As I wrote this script, I realized that's probably one of the top 2 main reasons this game mode barely has anyone playing. The balancing is way off. Like, really, really off. It's hard to explain. As the Mercs, nothing is different. Only thing added is the ability to use crits with melee, just like in Freak Fortress, and if you melee a wall, you can wall jump, which I think was a newer feature in Freak Fortress, but it was never in the servers I played in. But otherwise, nothing unique, nothing to help you stay alive. The best way to do any meaningful damage to Saxton is if a medic has the crits creek. But I saw medics mostly use the default medigun and one guy used the Vaccinator for some reason. But the Mercs seem to have a balancing issue. Not just survivability, but damage and, well, survivability. Now hear me out. When I played Saxton, I noticed some classes stood out among the rest. It reminded me of medieval mode with Spy being the broken class in that game mode. But instead of 1 class, it's 3. Spy, which is no surprise, Demo Knight, and Scout. They are unusually powerful in this game mode. Let's get the simple one out of the way, the Spy. He has, of course, the Dead Ringer, which allows him to survive hits that would normally kill any other in 1 hit. You can't tell where he goes, and even if you do and manage to hit him, the punch won't kill him. So he can just die, run away and hide until the Dead Ringer recharges. Then of course the backstab, but that's a minor issue. It was a thing in Freak Fortress and is not easy to pull off. It of course does a lot of damage, but it's no big issue. It's a big reward for managing to sneak behind someone so strong that they can kill you in 1 hit. But the cloak is a mix. If it's early, a Spy can hide the entire time during the fight. But if he is one of the last 3 survivors, he gets a buff particle effect, which shows even while cloaked, so you can find him. I don't know if they thought the cloak part through, but at least it keeps them from hiding the entire time. And I've seen Spies getting punished for doing that, so... Second is Demo Knight. His shield gives him a damage debuff once, so he can tank more hits than the other classes, but to a certain extent. He also has the range advantage, so his risk of being too close to hit Hail without getting hit is lowered. Not indefinitely or to a point he can't be killed, but it still helps him. A lot. He also has a disadvantage when there are multiple knights at once due to hit registration. They're too busy hitting themselves to do damage to Hail. I would know. I saw it and even attempted Demo Knight and ran to the exact situation when me and another Demo Knight were hitting each other instead of Saxton, and we paid the price. At least they don't charge away like they normally do. They go in for the kill like real men. I guess that's because they don't have to worry about losing heads they work so hard to earn due to Demo Knight being a weak subclass. The subclass shines in medieval mode where there isn't people with guns to shoot you before you can even get close. Demo Knight is alright, but his weapon variety varies and it depends on what he uses. What the meta is in versus Saxton is the half Satoshi, if I said that correctly. And let's say a normal game of 2 Fort, if you get a kill with a katana, you get health on kill. You don't overheal. But in versus Saxton, the rules are different. Since you can't exactly kill Saxton by regular means, instead of health on kill, you get health on landing a hit. So you can get punched by Saxton and survive, hit him with your sword and get your health back. Unless he has a Saxton punch, he can't kill you in one hit, so as long as you get a chain of hits and avoid being hit more than once, you're unkillable, which is an annoying thing I dealt with during my time as Saxton. Doesn't help when he has a pocket medic. Now we get to the class I hate the most, who is just as unlikable in versus Saxton. The Scout. The Boston bastard has a speed advantage, but I noticed as long as he's got his back to you, he's faster than Saxton. But the moment he turns around, he's dead. Scout has, of course, the babyface meta going for him. He just uses bleeding damage to make himself faster and can easily avoid Saxton, who has no way of catching up. Even his charged punch can't do him any good. When I joined a game during a match and I watched it happen, the only way Saxton was able to kill the skunt was by ambush. He has to get the Scout when he is least expecting it. Otherwise, the babyface Scout is unhittable. Another problem I noticed as Saxton Hale, and I don't know if this was internet or what, but I couldn't hit the Scout if he's hitting me with melee. I was in a fist fight with a Scout. Sure, he was hard to hit because he kept running in circles around me, but I can hear my fist contacting him if I have him right in front of me, and yet he hits me with a melee, and I'm the one taking damage, not him. I hit him so many times, and he wouldn't die. Just crit after crit. His speed is a big advantage at keeping him alive. He is a nuisance than a threat, really. Always the guillotine and the Christmas weapon thing, I forget the name, that does blood damage. Just constant hit and runs. They are one of the difficult things to deal with as Saxton. But other than that, the other classes got nothing special about them to keep them alive. Medic has Uber, sure, but that doesn't last long. He is easily killed. Heavy as well. Hell, all of them do. Yet, if you got enough of a certain class, the fight is short-lived. I was in a server when the entire team went heavy, save for a few people. One guy went engineer and one medic. It was enough to destroy Saxton and cause him to hide to avoid the tsunami of bullets headed his way. But survivors don't win if the team isn't good enough. It feels like luck most of the time. When you're a merc, you feel like death is inevitable. I didn't have fun shooting someone who takes little damage, and to do any real damage means you need to get close and personal with melee. But death is always guaranteed. I still have my curse of being put on incompetent teams. One time, a sniper was at spawn staring at the ass of a woman on the calendar. Meanwhile, gunfire in the background and the screams of the dead. He just didn't care. I've seen snipers play seriously, and they don't last long. Being a merc is discouraging and boring. Being an engineer doesn't give you any advantage. Sure, sentries, especially level 3 sentries, can deal a lot of damage to Saxton if he's exposed to sentry fire for an extended period of time, but they are easily destroyed. In Freak Fortress, the push from a sentry is crippling, and you need to rely on special abilities just to close the gap, but the short circuit makes them go into scared animation so you can't do damage, and they always hide by dispensers to keep the short circuit supplied. In versus Saxton, he can easily just jump over and destroy a level 3 sentry in 2 hits. Engineers don't last long in versus Saxton compared to Freak Fortress, where they get several means to protect themselves, and if you watch Freak Fortress videos, you'll notice they're usually one of the few players left alive in the end. I didn't enjoy being a merc that much.
Saxton Hale!
Now we get on to Saxton himself. You'd think he'd be pretty strong, and he is, but he's actually not as strong as you'd be led to believe if you were a merc. Once you play Saxton, you realize the guy is very fragile. I don't know where to begin with the problems he has. He has balancing problems of his own, good and mostly bad. Apparently some people don't find him fun to play because in one round a player was selected to be Saxton and he killed himself rather than play. My guess is because of how difficult it is to be Saxton, especially if you're against a competent team. The issues I mentioned with the 3 classes are still an issue. I had another clip, but OBS decided to make it laggy. I wish I fixed it sooner, but oh well. Saxton has 4 abilities: Brave Jump, Fist Charge, Slam, and Saxton Punch. Brave Jump just lets you jump higher by double jumping. Fist Charge is usually a way to travel, but can do damage to groups of people or single targets. And Slam lets you slam onto the ground if you're in the air and deal damage to anyone around. The Fist Charge is absolute garbage. I don't feel like I'm dealing any damage at all. I use it to close the gap and hopefully deal damage to a scout or someone I'm chasing. Nothing happens. I'm doing this big charge animation and I feel like I'm not even landing any hits. It's worthless. The Slam is situational. Very situational. If you jump and just so happen to see a group below, then that's the perfect time to slam. As well as they got you in the air, like Melee Crit or Pyro's Air Blast, if you could just slam down and recover and avoid being pinned in the air. But it's very situational. The only ability that's any good is the Saxton Punch. It charges over time, and when fully charged, if you land a hit, it instantly kills the person you punched and makes them explode like a Yeti, while also dealing heavy damage to anyone in range. It's good if you find yourself sworn, but it doesn't kill everything. But it can make your life a lot easier. But despite all that, I felt so weak as Saxton. I've seen the Mercs win fights against Saxton almost as much, if not more, than Saxton's win. I mean, it's better than Freak Fortress where the Freak always wins, but geez, Saxton just feels weak. But according to everyone in the server, it's a skill issue and you can't possibly lose because you're in God mode, even though I've seen Saxton lose shortly after. I feel like Saxton is really lacking. You shouldn't feel weak as Saxton. There are so many ways to counter him and make him almost helpless. I played him 4 times out of all the rounds I played, and let me tell you, I did not have fun whatsoever. The first time I figured since I'm a Freak Fortress veteran, I'll do fine. But I quickly learned that the Mercs can easily counter you. So many moments felt unfair. I kept punching a scout and he didn't die and just hits me instead. It's like he was blocking my punches. I hated chasing scouts, I hated spies who used the dead ringer to say they're sorry asses, and if I'm lucky to bump and punch them, they don't die. Demonites are a chore to deal with, especially with a pocket medic. Sentries, if you ignore them, they do damage, and I don't waste time removing them, but that just exposes you to even more damage. In Freak Fortress, if you take enough damage, you get a rage ability that is unique to the Freak you play as. Like some scare people around you, slowing them down and making them unable to shoot you. That was good for spies and scouts, but Saxton has nothing like it. If a spy cloaks and scout keeps his distance, there is nothing you can do. Saxton can only run if things get too hot. I got harassed for losing my first game and I just left the game after I died. I didn't want to sit there and take people laughing and insulting me. But the other times, I'm told it's a skill issue. Playing Saxton just isn't worth the wait, and I played him 4 times. It made me feel less hyped the more I played as him. I didn't feel like a god, I just felt a little bit of superiority due to my health and my damage. But otherwise, I don't feel confident and I know I wouldn't be able to kill everybody. I feel like a lot of people felt the same because versus Saxton already feels like it's dying out. Not a lot of people are playing last time I checked. All of this is probably why. Saxton feels too weak, playing Mercs feels too unbalanced, hell, both sides feel unbalanced. Saxton dies too early, and the Mercs have unbalanced weapons and classes that make it harder to be Saxton. It's the same issue with Medieval. Remove the spy's ability to backstab and it's a fair game. But of course, it won't happen. I don't see versus Saxton getting any balancing anytime soon. It's probably going to stay this way for the rest of TF2's never undying life. After what I experienced, like so many others, I don't want to play this game mode ever again until some balancing is done.